welcome back again. I hope you all had fruitful discussions outside in the smaller groups. And we now want to conclude in kind of this final panel and see what you've discussed or thought about during the presentations before, what you all see as the main challenges your university will be facing on the way to a more sustainable future. And yeah, I will just let you start with some inspiring thought from outside. Who wants to share at the beginning?
Well, is it on? I have the microphone. Maybe I just start. It was a very interesting discussion. I got a lot of very interesting feedback, input. We talked a lot about actually very concrete or practical things that I'm not going to, go into it now in too much detail. What we saw again is, I called it, it's all about people. What we saw is how difficult it is. In the end, it's about setting a culture, how difficult it is setting certain things in motion. In certain areas, in certain departments, things work or start to get in motion because there are some individuals, seeds, that push something. And then it creates a kind of a critical mass, and then things start suddenly move. And in other departments, if you don't have such a seed, it takes much more time, or it does not happen, or it has not yet happened. And I could imagine that in other institutions it's the same problem, right? In the end, you need maybe the few persons who push it. By just saying something from top down, it will not work. It will not work. You need this bottom-up initiative. This was a very clear message there. Of course, from top down, we can try to find certain individual and motivate them to really take certain steps, but it's really about bottom up. And at the very end, there was also an interesting discussion, maybe a bit on a kind of a sobering conclusion, that we talked about the difficulty actually of the interaction with the general public and politics, interaction of scientists with politics. We have now so much experience from Corona, and there's a similar experience on sustainability topics. And yeah, we were asking ourselves, so what can we do actually to improve this dialogue?
I can follow up on this because we had a very lively discussion with quite some similarities with what you just said. And one is the diversity of disciplines represented here. And also there has been over the last 10 years always people asking me as the head of the executive board of the university to sort of top-down implement diversity courses within a single day. It's never going to work. You need people on the ground who push for it. All we can do is encourage, framework it, provide resources to make it possible, but then it has to be made possible within the departments and disciplines, and that's a huge challenge. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it's not so easy to find common ground on what we understand by sustainability. For an industrial designer, and there was one at the table, it's very much ecology. And from someone from theatre, there was also someone from theatre there, it's more about social sustainability and diversity. It's not so easy to bring these terms together in a consistent program. That's really difficult. And the third point, something I've experienced over the last 12 years since I've been rector at this university, is how difficult it is to implement new ideas in old curricula. Because these curricula, they're full. So whenever want to introduce something new, something old has to go. And that's something we have not quite found a way to do it. Major minor will help us because we sort of broke down the old curricula and opened them up with minor programs, but that's a process. We've been working on that for many, many years, and we'll hope to start at the end of 2024. So, and looking at the challenges we have, we're just a bit slow, actually. So we don't have much time, and we take in our structures an enormous amount of time to move forward faster than we can. I think these are, for us, the main challenges.
I want to pick up on you saying that the curricula is already full, and because I've heard it from various schools now. On the one hand side, you, Professor Rhyn, said you want people to think critically, and I've heard from Professor Hilber that to think critically you need free time to let the thoughts develop. Maybe that also brings the seeds to grow. Now, I haven't heard this problem of full curricula from UZH. Have you found a solution to this? Or do you struggle with the same problem?
I think we have the same problem. And we have, at least we founded the so-called School for Transdisciplinary Studies, which offers also cross-cutting inter-faculty research, teaching offers courses, and this is a first step. So if students take these courses, they usually there is a complex but functioning mechanism of distributing these ECTS points to the different programs. But that's only one step. I think the basic problem that there is no space for this inter-silo communication in the university. Also not for the teaching personnel also has no time to talk to people teaching the other course in the same program. Also, it's a lack of basic communication that would make real inter and transdisciplinary progress possible. I think that's a structural problem, and I don't think we have the solution so far, but we are doing our best, as I assume every one of you.
Talking about the distribution of ECTS points, I think there was as well a time ago mentioned at one of these podiums the idea of having courses which could be elected by students from different universities as well. And with the Center for, with the ZHdK, there is now kind of a institution, or could that be a possibility to realize such courses and such interdisciplinary teaching models? Maybe to you, or
it's on. Yeah. I'm losing my voice. Yeah. No, and it could be an idea to work together on this topic in the center, but in our University of Teacher Education, we have really the problem. We are building students for a profession. We need to have specific contents and specific things the students have to do. So we have not so much space for choosing things. And we discuss this question you mentioned before. If it is a question of obligation to study these topics of sustainable development, or if you may freely choose it. And yeah, we had a lot of discussion. If you may choose it, just forget it. These people who wants to do it, they do it. The other who need it to do, they will not choose it. But on the other side, it's important to have more space. And we said it's really a possibility to sustain the process from top down. It's not only coming bottom up. So we have also on the management board the possibility to enforce this sustainable development as a topic in the studium. And that's for us a possibility, but as always, it's not so easy to do it. And we will try to find ways. Let me say a second thing, especially in the University of Teacher Education, a lot of things that we are doing is already a sort of teaching sustainability, but it's not labeled. It's not labeled like that. And it's a question of awareness. We have to be aware, what are we doing? And then we could say what we are doing is already sustainability, but we should label the right things and not the wrong things.
So then at the University of Teacher Education, we also need the discussion as at the University of Arts, what is sustainability? How do we label it? Who does understand what underneath it? Is that maybe also knowledge that we are missing? What do the different students understand more under sustainability, and what do we as institutions understand about it? Do we need more conversation about it, more exchange? What do different sides think about it?
I'm not so sure about that, but coming back to your question, why can't universities do something together? In the University of the Arts in London did a survey once on that topic, because they had general courses in sustainability and no one came. And the reason is students go to courses which are qualifying. They want to learn specifically something that helps them in their career. They're not interested in sustainability in general. They're interested in some sustainability in the way it concerns their own career and their own discipline. So we don't necessarily need a common understanding on what sustainability is. Sustainability for a musician will never be the same as for an industrial designer. I don't see this as a problem. But what we have to develop is specific offers in sustainability addressing the needs of students. And these needs are different from discipline to discipline. That's one of the big challenges we're facing.
So it's rather the reflection process within every discipline.
Yes, and it's specific.
So
just a quick follow-up. We just heard, and it's not only a problem for UCH, we already have structural problem, kind of that the inter-silo communication within the institution is already difficult. So then imagine the big silos inter-universities. So that's even a bigger problem. So first maybe we have to solve our internal problems.
Or wouldn't maybe sometimes the exchange about good practices between universities help to solve the internal problems? Don't we have a space, like what is it, a kilometer or so far away, to exchange this and to foster, to do more research on what is working and share it?
I think what you asked is a vision. One day I hope that we will have courses across our universities. But then, I mean, I suffered this evening, I would call it the Dissertori problem, because there were no students here from ZHAW. And that's exactly that. I mean, they are so full with their workload, so they don't even participate at meetings like this. But I think at ZHdK, if we have there a lot of interesting projects and people talk together, and it would be, for example, interesting if a musician talks to biologists, because when we talked about, at the opening ceremony, we talked about sustainable music. I thought, what's that for a crazy idea? Do they play on Alp horns, or what's this? And then I learned there is a huge industry behind sustainable music, so that all those festivals, they have a large question. So this opened a new world to me. So I think if we have many scientists who work together in the ZHdK, there we will have this fire lighting up from bottom up, and then there might be a couple of them who foster that we can do it together. But it's a long process, and we are only in the beginning. What we do at the moment, we have a project which is called in German Verschlagwortung, so it's keywording, and we try to see what's in it to print it on it. And I'm really with Heinz Rhyn. There are a lot of modules where you have sustainability in it, but you don't brand it as such. And this is, I think, the first step to do. And it's an easy step, and we should go that.
Maybe there could the ETH serve an example as well, as I think there's such a system implemented, or isn't it yet the case?
Which system exactly do you mean?
Of labeling courses which are...
You mean the ETH talent and so on is labeling, yeah. Well, we are at the beginning. We have to see, I would be careful. I hope that it works like it was the vision of the people who started it, but I want to see it in the coming years. As it was said, it takes time, but it's a beginning again. And then if you see that it works, that because it helps students, making them aware of what exists and so on, and we will see in a few years from now if there's some change in how people choose electives and so on. But maybe in a few years from now, I can give an answer to your question. Right now, I would be careful.
Okay, but therefore, exchange could maybe help in this regard to work together in this process, to not wait for the others to come up with conclusions and then doing the first step, but doing the first step right run after another. And I think for that the ZHdK, for example, could be really valuable.
I think it's important to have common projects. If you have common projects, you know how people is thinking, you find ways to work together, and then you can do the next step to go to have common instructions and common things. But first of all, you have to work together in projects.
I do not want to be critical to this new institute we're jointly running, but the danger is always that we're outsourcing stuff. And the challenge is bringing it back to the university, and that's the hard thing to do. It's easier to outsource something and say, there is center there, go there, do your projects, it's all fine, you got resources for that. But the main challenge is how to bring it back into the institution. That's, for me, the bigger challenge than setting up a center where people start working together. And I don't think that's solved yet, but in time we will have to find ways to bring it back to our institutions.
Wouldn't be especially students a way to bring it back if we expand the ZHdK from the research focus it has now to this, okay, we have joint lectures and their students from different universities exchange, and then they go back to their focus studies at their universities. They meet the other students from their university and say, hey, in there we discussed that.
I don't know, but as Günther Dissertori said before, we already have this inter-silo thing within our universities, and then sort of escalating it to the level of inter-university silos is even harder to do. So we're having a hard time enough to work against those inter-silo problems within the university already. And we're advancing, it's taking a lot of time, but sort of scaling it up to inter-university collaboration, it's just a huge challenge to do.
Maybe a less ambitious goal for such common activities, instead of talking about common project, the less ambitious goal would be that it is a place, also like this Sustainability Week, it's a place, for example, where best practices are exchanged, or where one hears about best practices in other places. That could already be a big step, instead of trying to work on common project. Hearing from what somebody else is doing sometimes can make it different, and then you bring it back and try it out in your own institution. And I'm starting to learn about this week here and so on. I would say that this is one place of having such an exchange, and this new center could be another place, and so on, as one idea.
And
So if you as EJ say this the center could be one idea, is this a slightly remark towards we may expect ETH becoming part of it?
Exactly not what I intended to. I thought about if I make the remark or not. I just tried to give an idea. I don't say more than that right now.
So,
and on the lowest level, so to say, in minds of everybody at the universities, what projects or ideas came up during the discussion or are already around to foster that mind shift, which is kind of part of the overall cultural change?
maybe also looking at the time, we take that as a final statement from each of you. What your key takeaway is answering Leon's question. Who wants to start?
I can do it with one sentence or with two sentences. We have to increase permeability between silos and open up spaces to make things possible. I think that's one of my major challenges.
I try, and we have to be more aware on what we are doing. That's very important, to bring things together and to think what we are doing is already sustainable, maybe, but we have to do the proof on it in a mindset.
I just continue. There was one thing that really struck me in our discussion, and it was, how do we address anxiety for the future of our young people? And this problem has become even more acute now since a week or so. It's not only related to sustainability, but now it's even more important. So this struck me really, and I will continue thinking about this.
Yes, in our discussion, I also found it interesting how much this silo topic was also important from the students' perspective. So the increasing the permeability and what has been said before, I think this is really important. And yes, I can only also support what you say. It's about our future. It's important that we talk and at universities that we create a space where it is where people can think and negotiate about their futures, and not just being in a tunnel of indicators to make a career. That's very important, I think.
I see three challenges. One is the generation dialogue. We discussed at our table. In my team, there is one guy who is slightly half my age, and all the others are less than half my age. And so the challenge is, if we decide, and we are all old guys on this panel, if we decide today, when our colleagues, our young colleagues, are there in 20 years, in 10 years, still there, they have to take the responsibility, and they have to be able to take the responsibility for what we decide today. So deciding aims which cannot be fulfilled is maybe very easy for us because we won't be there in 10 years. We won't be retired. We will be retired. But we always have to think that our colleagues, which will be there then, can take the responsibility. That is one that came out. Then our huge challenge at ZHAW is data. We don't have the data. Access to data is very difficult. And last, and I think it's the most important, we have to achieve that this endeavor makes fun. And then our students will participate. But at least for ZHW students, it seems that this is not fun enough, so they don't come. So we have to, wir müssen uns anstrengen.
By the way, there were many ETH students.
I also see this as a task for us to find one other form of discussion, of a fun discussion, to next time fill this room. I want to thank all of you for the time you took, for the also that you joined this experiment of mine. Thanks for all of you for coming and asking questions. And yeah, I hope at least now we're going to have a small, before I go to the fun part, we talked a lot about interdisciplinaries. Sustainability Week for this year is not over yet. And I want to point to one event on Friday. It's our interdisciplinary future. Maybe we get some more insights on how we can address the inter-silo question there. And on Saturday, you're all invited to our party. It's going to be at Irchel. If you haven't seen it yet, now you know. And with this, you're welcome to stay a bit longer, continue the discussions you had with the apéro outside.
Thank you.